Well, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie finally came out after years and years. And it's actually pretty good. Like, genuinely, it's a solid movie. The animatronics looked fantastic. It was pretty well written for the most part. The characters are likable, and the scares were, well, they were fine. They were fun. But the best part of the movie were the in-jokes for the fans. From acknowledging Dream Theory to goddamn Sparky the dog making an appearance, this movie was 100% a love letter to fans of the game. No, the series. But what if this movie wasn't based off of the game? What if, in an alternate universe, this movie came out as a standalone project and then had a game based off of it? What if Five Nights at Freddy's the game was based off of Five Nights at Freddy's the movie? First things first, I think before we jump into this video, I need to outline some general stuff with this what if. For simplicity's sake, we'll keep the original game's gameplay and structure of Five Nights as a security officer stuck in your office. While a big part of the movie was characters exploring the pizzeria, this hypothetical game would be more streamlined. You could even say that we're playing as a prior security guard, maybe somebody like, I don't know, Fritz Smith or someone like that. There will be one exception to this static gameplay that we're all familiar with, but we'll come back to that later. Speaking of the story though, what are we gonna do about that? I believe the best FNAF games had stories that were only there if you really went looking for them. It keeps the experience of playing the game streamlined and focused without any distractions or hang-ups. For this game, nights would immediately follow one another upon their completion. Background lore would be either given through Atari Death minigames a la FNAF 2 and 3, or by rare screens a la the hallucinations in FNAF 1, or the shadow animatronics in 2. As for who you would play as, again, you would be some random security guard. You wouldn't be playing as Mike from the movie. This game could theoretically function as an expansion to the movie's lore even, maybe as a pseudo prequel sorta thing. But with the story and gameplay concepts out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. How would it actually play and differ from our FNAF 1? That is to say, how would the animatronics differ if they were based on the movie? First up, we got my personal favorite animatronic in the series, Bonnie. We're going to cover Bonnie first and Chica after him, since they act similar in FNAF 1 Classic, and would mostly remain this way in our What If. They're the intro animatronics for the game, so we'd have them act fairly basic and teach the player the mechanics of the game. They would both be active from night 1 onwards. Movie Bonnie would remain very close to his classic counterpart, mainly roaming around the hallway and storage closets of this map, but he'd have one new ability based off of something that happens in the movie. With his electric guitar, he can short-circuit your power supply if he gets too close to your door. I think instead of instantly killing you, Bonnie should try and drain your power and assist the other animatronics in wearing you down over the course of a night. Power management was a huge part of FNAF 1's gameplay, so I think it'd be interesting if you had more threats targeting it. Let's say that if you go to Cam's while Bonnie's at your door, he gets into your room and lets his guitar mess with the breaker somehow. It'll drain some power and then he'll run off. However, if you see him at your door, you have to close your door and temporarily turn off the building's power to get him to leave. It'd be basically you saying, "Hey bud, you can't mess with the power if I turned it off, go yourself." Then, once he's gone, you turn it back on and resume your camera duties. Next up, Chica. While in FNAF 1, Chica acted sort of as Bonnie 2.0, being a vanilla animatronic that didn't do very much. In the movie, we saw her do something that was pretty interesting and wholly unique to the movie. Essentially, Chica lets her cupcake run free and lets it into the vents to pursue someone. We obviously need to incorporate this into our game, so we will be introducing vent gameplay into FNAF 1. Chica would go to someplace in the restaurant, maybe in the kitchen or hallway, and open a vent and let the cupcake into it. This would be very similar to the vents in FNAF 3, where there would be a progression of the cupcake moving through the vents, and you could hear this, but you probably wouldn't be able to see this. I don't think that we should have a whole separate cam system for the vents specifically. Outside of the cupcake though, our Chica as an individual would attack similarly to her classic counterpart, although she would approach the main door instead of an alternate door from Bonnie's. Side note, I didn't notice a second door in the FNAF movies office, so I won't be referencing one, but if there is another door and I just missed it, just assume that, you know, Chica and Freddy's stuff applies to that door instead of the one that Bonnie and Foxy use. And speaking of Foxy, Foxy would actually be super easy to translate to this what if, as he's pretty faithful to the FNAF 1 version of his character. He doesn't do anything new or unique, he just does what he does, and he does it well. He'd theoretically be active on night 1, but he'd be more of a threat night 2 onwards. What I can talk about now, though, is how we'd fix one of early FNAF's greatest problems: a lack of reliance on the cameras. For having cams be theoretically your main source of information in these games, you use them at a surprising rate, which is to say not very often at all. Well, you do use the camera system, but not all of the individual cameras, if that makes sense. Like in FNAF 1, if you look at pro gameplay, whatever you define that as, you aren't going to see players checking on Freddy going to the bathroom or stuff like that. We're going to change that with this game with one simple fix. The longer you have your camera on an active character, the less likely they are to move. This is similar to how Foxy worked in FNAF 1, but we're applying it to all animatronics to give the player an actual incentive on keeping track of their movements and, you know, actually utilizing the other cameras. Plus, since Bonnie and Chica have new abilities, it'd give the player more of a reason to keep tabs on them and keep them at bay. For example, if you know Foxy's about to run, you might want to hold off Chica so you don't have to worry about the cupcake entering the vents and killing you while Foxy's at your door. Well, that's all of the supporting cast, but we still need to talk about the main man himself. Freddy, Fazbear. Freddy, much like Foxy, doesn't stray too much from his original counterpart. Actually, Freddy didn't really do a whole lot in the movie. Most of the heavy legwork got given to Chica or Foxy. For that reason, we're going to say that Freddy also remains similar to his in-game counterpart, becoming active after Night 3 and slowly moving towards you as the night continues. However, as anyone who saw the movie can attest to, our Freddy has quite the pair of chompers on him. This guy can bite! Since we already have a newfound reliance on our cameras for information, what if Freddy acted directly against that mechanic, disabling the cameras by biting them? Let's say that if you look at Freddy too long, he'd jump up and chomp down on the camera, disabling it, potentially preventing you from holding back an animatronic. For this mechanic to be fully fleshed out, Freddy would logically need to go to other locations that he didn't in the original game, such as Pirate's Cove, let's say. This would, in turn, mean that Freddy has to move from location to location faster, but that's to balance out his path to being longer in this version of the game. And that about does it. That's the main 4 animatronics and how I believe they'd work in a game that was based off of the FNAF movie. But of course, that's not all the characters we're putting into this game. One of the coolest parts of the early stages of the FNAF series were the hallucinations and random cameos of characters you could get. Not only did these things give some insights into the lore of the series, but they also lent themselves incredibly well into introducing new characters entirely, or just Easter eggs. So, to pay homage to that aspect of the series, we're going to add in a couple references to other characters that were featured in the FNAF movie. Spoilers ahead. The first cameo we can talk about is Balloon Boy. Yeah, surprise for anyone who hasn't actually seen the movie, but this bastard of the lore actually somehow made it in. As a cameo... What is this, Mortal Kombat? Balloon Boy would occasionally appear on your desk as a random Easter egg, but that's probably all he'd do. He'd just show up, maybe with a little stinger to give you a jump, but that's about it. Honestly, when I was watching the movie, I was expecting him to, try and steal, Mike's batteries from his, flashlight, but that never happened, so I guess Balloon Boy doesn't get to be a little bitch in this game. Congrats to him. The next cameo we've got to talk about is the one that really shocked me in the theater, Baby. In the FNAF movie, we see a rundown animatronic that looks strikingly similar to Baby from Sister Location. She wasn't a functioning animatronic, as she was just a limp springlock suit. We won't have her be a main enemy. We'll just have her be an Easter egg that can show up in parts and services every now and then. Speaking of parts and services, a very special boy would be joining Baby in that room. Someone who was a huge part of the community's theories at the genesis of the series, and who finally made his big break in the movie. Enter Sparky the Dog. For anyone unaware, Sparky the Dog was a part of arguably the biggest hoax the FNAF community has ever seen. Allegedly, you could sometimes see a dog animatronic named Sparky peeking out of a specific door, which one I forget. This was never the case, but it nonetheless took the fandom by storm for its, at the time, convincing nature. Nonetheless, this guy made a cameo in the FNAF movie, so it's only fair that we have Sparky show up. Much like Baby, there would be a rare chance that Sparky's suit would show up in parts and services. He wouldn't be an aggressive character, but sort of a blink and you'll miss it cameo amidst the static of the cameras. Now that those two are out of the way, it's time we talk about the big guys, the head honchos, the cameos that you already know I had to talk about. Even if you didn't see the movie, you know who's up first. The yellow bear himself, Sans Undertale! I mean, Golden Freddy. Golden Freddy's up now. As a side note, am I seriously the only one who's wondering why the hell Golden Freddy has a glowing sans eye in the movie? I don't really know what to make of it, but I did accidentally shout out, "Oh my god, Sans Undertale!" when he first showed up in the theater. Getting back on track, Golden Freddy would main one-to-one with his classic counterpart. There would be an exceedingly rare chance for a Golden Freddy poster to spawn in a certain hallway, and if you saw it, he would appear in your office. And if you look at him for too long, game over. Last, but certainly not least, we have the Purple Man himself, Springtrap, William Afton, Steve Raglan. Raglan? Steve Raglan, Norville Shat. We had to include Springtrap, or as I call him, Spingbing, somewhere in this game. Sure, in terms of the original games, the puppet was supposed to be in FNAF 1, but we're basing this off of the movie, where we undeniably get Spinkus as a cameo. Well, technically he's more Spring Bonnie in the movie, as he isn't yet spring-locked, But come on, that's Sporingo. We're going to call him Slinky. That's what he is. Unlike Sparky, Baby, and arguably Golden Freddy, Afton is unarguably hostile in the movie, which would be reflected in the game as well. To properly adapt his arrival in the movie, we'll be pulling from another classic FNAF game, Five Nights at Freddy's 4. FNAF 4's Night 6 has all of the main characters active up until 4 AM when they're replaced by Nightmare Fredbear. For our game's Night 6, though, everyone would be active until 4 AM, where Afton would arrive at the pizzeria to kill us. The thing is, Afton isn't an animatronic. He's a human. He wouldn't be stopped by us looking at him on the camera. Now, sure, he might pause every now and then to taunt us or to threaten us, but he is not stopping until he gets to our office. Now, we can talk about what happens when he gets into our office. Not if, when. In this game, you'll be stationed at your desk a la FNAF 1. We've been over this. However, considering how many characters are running around the establishment in the movie trying to escape from the animatronics, I thought that it'd be interesting to adapt that aspect of the movie into our little thought experiment. Now, if an animatronic gets into your office, sure, you're dead. They kill you, or rather they put you into a bootleg saw trap that kills you. However, if you were to run out of power during the night, or when Afton was about to make it into your room, you would have the ability to run from your office. You would then enter a sort of hide-and-seek mode, where you'd need to hide from the animatronics, or Afton, who'd be roaming around the pizzeria looking for you. Imagine the movements being similar to how it is in FNAF 4, where you run between static locations. It's not free roam like in Security Breach. You would need to listen in for cues as to where the animatronics or Afton were and run accordingly. Maybe you could even call for them as a pseudo FNAF 3 audio lure and run away as a distraction. For the main nights of the game, i.e. 1 through 5, you'd be able to survive the night if you made it to 6 AM in this state. However, Night 6 would be different. Night 6 would continue past 6 AM and would not stop. Canonically, your security guard has to die for the events of this movie to take place. Someone else has to fill your chair. You basically enter a survival mode where Afton is chasing you and there is no escape except for death. I think this would work great as a bonus mode for the game, alongside the obligatory custom night, seeing how long you can last with SpongeBob chasing after you. As for the other extras you could unlock, you'd have the basics of seeing full renders, jump scare animations, unfiltered camera screens, etc. But that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this little idea I had, and hope you enjoyed the FNAF movie. Seriously, if you like the main games at all, go watch it. It's a serious love letter to the fans. There are reasons to listen to critics when it comes to movies, but I don't think that this is one of those times. The movie's just fun, man. It's just a good time. And that's what I hope you had while watching this video. And, as always, thank you for watching.